let's focus on the third passage, which is called identity marketing. Again, we don't have any instructions, so this is pure punctuation. So we're looking for the dependent versus the independent clauses. One proven way for marketers to appeal to a larger audience is through identity marketing. Advertisements that demonstrate the fit between the product and the audience sense of identity, full stop, right? Because from here to here, it's an independent clause. And tradition wisdom holds is another independent clause. The only way to connect two independent clauses is through a comma, through a semicolon, or with a full stop. Never with a comma. So A is impossible. C is impossible. Well, C is possible, so traditional is okay. It cannot be. So you have a colon, which means that this part here is a explanation of the first sentence. So this you need and this sentence here is something totally different. So first of all, you cannot put and, because that would mean that this is also an explanation of this, which it is not. And it doesn't have a so relationship, which means therefore. It's just you put a full stop, and then you have and then you have a separate sentences. Traditional wisdom holds that blah blah blah. 24, same thing. Looking for dependent and independent clauses. The study included both green consumers. That's the first independent clause. And now here we have a dependent clause starting with the comma. Who are the green consumers? So a dependent clause that these are people whose purchases are especially influenced by the perceived environmental friendliness of the product. End of dependent clause and end of the comma. So A seems good to me, but let's see. No, you cannot do this, because then it means that the neutral consumers are also part of green consumers, which is not true. You don't need you cannot have a semicolon here because there is not a independent clause after it, and you need a comma here. So the correct answer is A. Now here we have instructions. Which choice most effectively combines the sentences? Effective combination, you're looking for something that doesn't have any repetition and so on. The researchers divided the participants into 3 groups. The research, look at the repetition, researchers. So the research divided the participants into 3 groups, and with the researchers, that's a repetition, into 3 groups, and showed each group a different advertisement. Okay, that's good. This no, because we have passive voice. Passive voice is technically correct, but is not considered good English. And then you have a repetition here as well. So the researchers divide the participant into 3 groups and showed each group a different advertising message. Now, if you have this, you have to be careful who is this referring to. So there's gonna be something tricky here. One message. So the researchers showed people, not showed me or you or us, but showed people, them. One message proclaimed that the product was necessary for those who think of themselves. So this refers to those, so of themselves. Because this is in plural, this is in plural. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, 129, 130, 131, 132, 133, 134, 135, 136 27. The researchers then asked, you cannot have a comma after the verb. The researchers then asked the participants to rate on a scale of 1 to 7. To rate what? Their likelihood. So you don't need a comma here. Ask the participants, you don't need here a colon. So ask the participants to rate on a scale of 1 to 7 their likelihood, blah blah blah. You don't need any punctuation. You have the researcher, subject, asked, verb, participants, direct object to do something. You don't need any punctuation. 28. At the same time, comma, a group of marketing executives was this would be a repetition. At the same time and simultaneously is the repetition. At the same time, again, we have a passive voice here. This is not good English. At the same time, here we have a repetition, collectively, together. So you can't. This is the shortest and most clear, right? You remember we have talked, those of you who are taking classes with me, that usually the shortest answer is correct, but not always. So at the same time, a group of marketing executives was asked which message would be most effective. That's it. Here we have a repetition, so it's not the problem that it's passive voice, but the repetition. 29. Again, so which tense? You're looking at the rest of the tenses. Well, also I would look at the previous sentence. So the previous sentence is in the past. The results of the study suggest that the marketing executive was the one. Well, you cannot use present continuous. You cannot use a, because the subject is not the study. The subject are the results. So it needs to be the results suggest. I mean, it needs to be exactly plural. Suggest. So you cannot do suggests. All right. So the results suggest. It's not singular. It needs to be plural. So always be careful. They're always trying to trick you here. So number 30. Which choice provides the best interpretation of the data in the study? I'm not sure if they're referring to this data, so which says that if you absolutely base it on identity, not actually very much. If you just appeal, there is the most, so you appeal but not super directly. And here is no identity, reference is quite low. Well, I'll go back to the beginning of the test where it says that the traditional wisdom holds that direct advertising to identity used to be traditionally taught as the most effective advertisement. And the thesis says, however, recent evidence suggests that direct identity marketing is no longer effective. So whatever marketers used to think is no longer effective. So this is the new evidence, the new study. So they are proving that these marketing executives are no longer following the traditional method they're following doesn't work anymore, which means it's not a new strat. They're following an outdated paradigm, right? And you can see that actually from the thesis here. Sorry, this here. So we have a new recent evidence. That's the evidence in that paragraph that the marketers now are no longer relevant. So, which choice provides accurate information from the graph? The message was with an average likelihood of 436. 436 is when you appeal to identity of green consumers, right? So the message was most effective with them. So it was most effective. It was most effective with green consumers. So it's this one, right? 32. Similarly, in contrast, nevertheless. Nevertheless. These are synonyms, so I'm thinking it's gonna be between A and B. Let's see. The message was most effective with green consumers, with an average likelihood of 436. The one that appealed to their identity without insisting that the product was necessary for them. Charlie, a good choice for green customers. ... The lowest average rating in the study, 274. 274 is this one. It should be in contrast because this is the highest and this is the lowest. It should be in contrast. Because sometimes they're synonym, but in this case it's a contrast because you have the difference. This is the highest and in contrast this is the lowest. So the most effective conclusion to the passage as a whole. In conclusions, well, consumers do seem to favor products that claim to fit with their identities. Messages that boast of a product superior link seems to turn off the very group. To continue being successful, marketers will need to take these findings into consideration. So they shouldn't aim for more appeal because the text is exactly that too much direct appeal turns people off. They should experiment with more nuanced appeals, right? So there should be appeal to identity, but it shouldn't be 100% direct, okay? I will film the last part tomorrow. Good luck to everybody on the exam.